back to another video. In most fan-made AUs where the SkyWing egg survives the events of the first prologue, this dragonet is usually raised alongside the Destiny brothers and sisters. However, I'm going to be putting a little spin on this concept. Instead of the SkyWing egg being delivered by Hvitur, it'll indeed have fallen down the mountain, but it's discovered by a human village instead. But this is no ordinary scavenger settlement. This SkyWing will be raised by humans that live underground and fear dragons to an extreme degree. Will he be able to reach the outside world where he belongs? Because in the world he's from, Torch doesn't think he belongs. This story deals a lot with those themes, and I think you guys are really going to like this. The idea for it was sent in by Mothwing the Medicine Cat. And thank you so much to the amazing 𝙈𝙤𝙁𝙊𝙍 for making the art here. It's absolutely gorgeous and brings this tale to life. But before we begin, a huge shout out to my patrons. River95, Slightest Wild, Thistle, Noobto, Pyronuke, Avril, Pancake, Askarada, and Adequin. Thank you all so much for supporting me as always. Links to their social medias are in the description down below. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into the video. Lightning shot out above the entire Sky Kingdom's horizon. Rain mercilessly poured a flood down on the rocks, littering the ground with unforeseen intensity. What began as an already challenging job for Hvitur had just become worse. Scarlet's troops were after him, and they would never stop until their talons clipped through his pale wings. SkyWings with scales dipped in the colors of the sunset grabbed the ice dragon by his shoulders, narrowly avoiding a sub-zero end from blasting frost breath. By the time a muzzle was locked onto his snout, Hvitur was truly trapped. It took one of the big guards throwing him on a slippery ledge for Scarlet and Burn to arrive, finally making their grand landing on the kingdom's edge. Hvitur's head pounded at the force his skull collided with the rock. The two queens eyed the growling Icewing with intensity and sick joy. What caught their attention the most was the bright red egg he clutched desperately in his talons, the unhatched baby he was meant to protect. All Hvitur had to do was bring this egg back to the caves, and the dragonets of destiny could be born like they were meant to. The entire world could be saved with the prophecy dragons, heading a new existence for Pyria. The words of the tale say this dragonet will hatch with his new siblings tonight, Hvitur thought as sharp claws latched onto his arm. Blood began to swelter from his body, pooling down and mixing into the rippling puddles below. He'll make it. It doesn't matter if I don't. This dragonet is going to save the world. Scarlet and Burn let out laughs darker than the echoing thunder as they prepared to push Hvitur off the edge, ending the prophecy once and for all. The Icewing's gaze darted toward his precious cargo, the egg teetering near the edge as Hvitur approached the cliff's corner. "You wouldn't kill a dragonet, would you?" he asked the queens. "This child has done nothing to you yet, and whether you like it or not, the prophecy will come true. Pyria is going to be saved from cowards like you, who can't even face the thought of a child coming to end your fight. You'll meet your conclusion. Just you wait." Hvitur was grabbed by the throat with Burn's dark grasp. "No dragonet can end my empire," she said, words dripping with sickly venom. "No writing on a scroll can determine my own destiny. Your life, your fighting in this war, is over. She knew at the moment you dared to leave your kingdom walls and join that pathetic group. Farewell, poor Icewing. Die knowing you doomed this egg." Hvitur's eyes opened widely. He tried to give a response, but Burn was too quick. She shoved the silver dragon off the cliff's edge into the thick foliage of the border forest. A small flame flickered out of her nostrils at the resounding crack that echoed up the mountain. Scarlet cackled, shaking her head. "I was about to shut him up myself if you hadn't grabbed that worm's throat earlier. Now," she said, turning her attention to the crimson egg, "what would be the most thrilling way to dispose of this little hero?" Byrne turned to face the cargo. It lay idly on the mountain's edge, rain spilling over the sides of the unbroken shell. "We give it the same fate," the Sandwing Princess replied coldly. "Perhaps Hvitur's soul can watch it break from whatever afterlife he ended up in. I'll give you the honors, considering this child would have been born into your tribe." Scarlet grinned, the sight sickening. With ungentle talons, she lifted the egg that was the color of blood. After placing it directly on the teetering rocks, a light kick was all it took for the hatchling's home to fall. "Oops," she said sarcastically. "There goes the prophecy. How sad." Byrne eyed the ground below, squinting to see through the heavy rain. There had been no splatter that came up the mountainside, unlike before. "How do we know it's dead?" she said at last. Scarlet only laughed. "Nothing could survive a fall this high. We used to murder our fire skills dragonets the same way. The prophecy died tonight, so let's celebrate our victory. Oh, it will be thrilling to see the looks on the Towns of Peace's faces soon. I'll reward my highest spectators with a great show in the arena tonight. The storm will only scare the idiotic prisoners more. It would certainly be more entertaining if one of them got struck from above. But believe me, you'll be the queen of the Sandwings soon enough. Imperia will be ours. That egg never stood a chance against the continent's strongest rulers. I'd like to see any dragon try now." Byrne's gaze remained on the forest that was cloaked in shadows below. After one last moment, she faced Queen Scarlet a final time. "Very well, then. Tonight, we celebrate." Scarlet smirked, ordering guards to prepare the way to the palace, and the rain thrashed on. What the two queens were unaware of was the sound that replaced the crack they wished they would have heard. Instead, a faint thump of an egg on carefully placed leaves was lost in the wind. A miracle that would change everything. Large cherry wings swooped down from the cave ceiling, smacking a young human in the face. The boy pointed at the hovering mass in front of him. "Hey!" his voice squeaked. "That isn't fair! I told you that you can't start from up there! It's cheating! Dad, tell Torch that isn't allowed." The child's father only laughed, shaking his head with warmth. "Just because you're a dragon doesn't mean you get to play games like one. No one in the town is like you, Torch. Get down from there before you make your wings soar." The red dragonet sighed, a frown now on his freckled face. At his look, another scavenger in the cave voiced her opinion. "Well, I think it's clever," a teenage girl replied. She slid down a short stalagmite, landing at Torch's grounded claws. "And besides, we hide in small places all the time during hide-and-seek. It's not like he can do much of that either, but it's not against the game rules." Torch flickered a small smile in the girl's direction. "I swear the cavern is the only one in this family who actually takes my side," the SkyWing dragonet said with a laugh. He sat on the cool cave floor, patiently letting the young boy poke at his tail from behind. "Oh," the girl said suddenly, digging into one of her pouches. "I have another bracelet for you, Torch. One of the villagers from deep inside the town center traded it to me. It kind of reminded me of you, so I wanted you to have it. It was a little small, so I added something to extend it so it'd fit on your wrist." Cavern placed the item in Torch's large claws, looking up at his verdant eyes with affection. Torch stared at the gorgeous bracelet, slipping it on immediately. Its gemstones and rock lining matched the hue of his talons, sparkling under the small sun hole. Rays from above flitted inside when the clouds were just right. "It's amazing," Torch said breathlessly. Cavern smiled, leaning against the dragon's side. "Yeah," she said at last. "It's just like the rocks we found your egg by all those years ago. Granite told me someone managed to get a few of these from the mountains. Can you believe a patrol went up there once? I want to do that someday. Get so high nobody could ever bring me down. I want to view the clouds over the horizon. Who even knows what's up there?" Dragons? Her younger brother interjected. Lots of dragons. Which is exactly why we're here, Cavern. Where it's safe. The dark-skinned girl rolled her eyes. You sound exactly like everybody else in the town center, Jasper. And for the record, we have a dragon right here who hasn't hurt any of us and never will. Surely there are more like Torch, right? And even if there somehow weren't, he could protect us. The SkyWing nodded excitedly. There have to be more dragons like me. I can't be the only one. And besides, I bet I could totally be fierce and growl at them to go away. I'll just have to practice my roar more, because right now it sounds like a mouse. The kid's father sighed, turning away from his boiling pot on the stove. Torch is different. We raised him from his egg. He has a good heart. You haven't seen the things the elders have. Many of our ancestors were killed by dragons, which is why we had to resort to living here. You know this. Your brother is right, as much as I wish he wasn't. This village protects us from dangerous talons. It's nice to live somewhere where you don't have to fear big wings yanking us into oblivion. I can't even fathom how humans survive anywhere else. The stories I've heard since I was born down here, they're no joke. The elders know what's best for us. Patrols only. Torch and Cavern's faces fell, gazes reaching each other with sullen eyes. Upon seeing their disappointment, the man continued. But, Cavern, I will try my best to ask Lapis if you can register for supply routes early. Just the easy stuff, at least until you're a little older. Berry picking and small rabbits. The girl beamed, nudging Torch's arm. And as for you, he continued, looking up at the freckled SkyWing, I'll try to ask them if you can tag along one time. But honestly, even though it's been years since we found you, you know how everyone is. All I can do is try. Torch nodded, and still smiled at the thought. Getting to actually fly outside? The dragonet thought to himself. I've only ever tried in the high-ceiling caves, but even then, I just crashed into them, could barely move to the side. I just want to have the sun warm my wings, even if it's just one time. Please, Council, say yes. I know I'm not like you, but I'm trying to be. I just want to look up at the sky for more than opening above my head. Once, even. For some reason I can't understand, I feel like I need to be up there, like the sea of blue calls to me. Doesn't everyone in the village feel that way? It seems like only Cavern shares my dream. Or, well, shares anything with me. No matter how hard I try, I'm never like the townspeople enough. But I'll keep at it. I just want to touch the sky. Someday. Torch squeezed out of the entryway, grunting as he slid between rocks. He looked up at the place he had always called home. Stalactites lined the ceiling like stars, glittering beneath the fleeting moonlight. Pillows were stacked to form a makeshift seating area, with scrolls discarded by their side. They were the same stories Torch, Cavern, and Jasper had read 1,000,000 times. Still, they were better than nothing, and the SkyWing dragonet always flipped through their pressed pages whenever he got the chance. Sitting on pillows that were too small, the dragon reached for his favorites. Some had drawings of humans, mostly hunters, but the best illustration of all was the spear-wielding scavenger standing on a mountain peak, looking out across Pyria. Instead of appearing as though he ruled the world, he was part of it. The plains ahead were something marvelous to be explored and guided through. You could see it in his face. Cavern had always said that would be her someday, with Torch hovering at her side. The pale red dragon hoped it would be so. Sighing, Torch dropped the parchment to the ground. It would not be long before his human sister returned from her night classes, and the pair would slip out into the village center. After an hour of Torch staring up the sky hole, familiar footsteps pattered toward him from afar. You ready? Cavern asked, out of breath. She slung an extra pouch across her shoulder and settled its contents inside. The SkyWing nodded, smile going wide. Of course. Been excited for dinner all day. Torch bent down, letting the scavenger girl hitch a ride on his back. She slid onto him with ease, the action familiar to them both. The cave system was large, composed of paths dug by humans for decades. The duo passed workers cutting into new corners, preparing the way for future homes with the increasing housing demand. More scavengers than ever were being killed in the above world, the elders had told the settlement. Something had been riling the dragons up for years. Torch wondered why they had suddenly become so aggressive out of nowhere. But even when the SkyWing dragonet tried to envision his species, he drew blanks. What did other flying lizards look like? Are they red like me? Are they bigger? Smaller? How good are they at flying? Can they also explode flames from their mouths? Or is that something the humans taught me to do when I hatched? How much do they even know about people anyway? I mean, if I was aware that my prey actually had thoughts, surely I'd change my mind about eating them. Do they really not know? Are we, or well, my family, just creatures they chase around? Maybe they need the food. I have no actual idea what the dragon world is like. For all I know, I could be lucky I'm down here. Although, I think a part of me knows that's not true. Maybe. I don't know. One full glimpse at the sky, and then I'd know. I just have so many questions about what dragons are like. Do some of them also have human sisters that ride on their backs? Ones that repeatedly say their names and are poking furiously at their sides right now? Wait. Torch! Cavern shouted, lifting her knuckles as though she were about to knock on his head to alert him. She let out a laugh. You with me, dude? The SkyWing dragonet nodded. Yeah, sorry. Good, she continued. We're right outside the entrance cave to the square. I'm gonna slide off. Torch crouched down, letting the scavenger's feet reach the stone floor. She dusted off her clothing and patted down her curly brown hair. Well, shall we? Torch and Ken made their way to the underground gate. A human stood at its front, holding two serrated blades. The man's face was worn with age and war, scarring littered over nearly every inch of skin. His eyes darted toward them immediately, gaze firm but recognizing beneath the layers. I told you it's not a good idea to bring him, the guard said, pointing at Torch. There's nothing stopping that dragon from crashing into everything we built here and destroying the townspeople's work. Torch straightened his posture, a small wisp of smoke curling out from his nostrils. Hey! If that was going to happen, it would have occurred the first dozen times I went out here. I promise I'm not going to mess up anybody's stuff with my tail or my fire. The guard let out a small grumble, focused on the girl still. He breaks anything, you buy it. Cameron scoffed. Well, then I guess I won't be paying any gold pieces. You clearly know nothing about my brother. Grabbing Torch by the arm, Cavern pulled the two of them inside the gate and past the man. Sorry about that, she said through a sigh. I still don't understand why everybody treats you this way. You spent your whole life being a human, yet nobody gives you the same respect as one. It's not fair. Hey, Torch began, placing her hand on his claw. It's okay. Really. It's a miracle they even let me live down here, honestly. I'm grateful for anything I can get. Cavern muttered something sad under her breath before turning to face the village center. A ginormous room took up most of the space, market stalls lining the center in a circle. Hanging crystals and door chimes filled their ceilings. Some formed crescents Torch assumed to be the moon, and others were in the shapes of familiar underground structures. Kids laughed and chased each other around the stalagmites. The pair headed further into the settlement, when suddenly a cold hand made contact with Torch's scales. I thought the entire point of this place was to avoid your kind, a sudden voice said sharply. The two turned to face a scavenger with folded arms. Face all piss off, Cavern replied, stepping in front of Torch to face the other teenager directly. She eyed him narrowly. You better watch your language, she said. Wouldn't want it to upset your soft little pet over there. Hey, Torch added, just let us go. We weren't bothering you. You know, Basalt continued, ignoring the SkyWing's words, I think you're aware you don't belong here. It's why you try really hard to fit in, yet fail every time. You're never going to be one of us, because you're a disgusting dragon who doesn't know his place. I shouldn't have to see you around here. Shut up! Enough! A cloaked figure stepped out from behind a gravel statue. All three of the teens froze, watching as an elder approached them. Conflict has no place in our caves, he said at last, his voice dark. The man's face was withered and old, with a burn scar going up his entire right arm. He left behind unmistakably charred skin. Torch shivered at the sight. I think a dragon did that. Cavern and Torch, the elder continued. You know why 𝙂𝙁𝙁𝙁 hates dragons. You must have some understanding for his behavior after who those monsters stole from him. Now, he had no right to berate either of you, but you must never continue with those words here. Are we clear? The entire town had gone silent, everyone watching the sight before them wordlessly. Torch felt his face grow bright red beneath his colored scales. I'm so sorry, sir, the SkyWing said quickly. We won't make a scene in the future. Good. I hope you know how lucky you are that we found you and allowed you in our home, Torch. It was a miracle we found an undamaged egg in our leaf traps. If your kind is good for one thing, it's discarding their unused food off the mountains. Wasteful. You can imagine our patrol's surprise upon seeing dragons spawn in the week's cliffside hatch. If it weren't for your new father's heart, you'd have never hatched beneath our roof that night. It is by the grace of man that you live here today. Your efforts to live by our society do not go unnoticed. But don't ever engage in such conflict with this species. Leave this to us. Torch nodded, mouth dry. If he could, the SkyWing would have flown away in a wing beat and never returned right then and there. Stupid. So stupid, he thought. Maybe Cavern is better off without me. Was I even made to be your brother? No. I'm just some stupid dragon that hatched out from an egg and into a world down here that isn't my own. They're all right about me. I don't belong. I feel like an alien. Will that ever change? Or am I going to be stuck like this forever, unable to see the sun? I feel like I know nothing. I'm so worthless down here. I'm born into a world that wasn't made for me. I don't know how to feel. Cavern grumbled, facing the elder herself. You don't get to speak like that to him, she said, her breath hot in the man's face. Torch has done so much for us. He shouldn't have to pretend to be human, but he changed himself for your own convenience. I'm sick of him being treated this way all the time. It's not fair. Why can't we think about what a sky dragon needs? He didn't choose to have these scales, so why do all of you judge him for it? It's not hard to let him be who he is. Because I know this dragon, and he is much better than anything I've ever seen from all of you in my own species. The elder's mouth gaped open, the old man speechless. Before he could even respond with fury, Cavern grabbed Torch by the wingtip. We're going. The SkyWing could barely move. The walk back to their home cave was eerily and unusually silent. Torch's mind raced through a million thoughts at once, beads of sweat forming at the top of his scales. He pointlessly wiped away at the warm droplets. Cavern eyed the SkyWing dragonet carefully, her gaze soft. After minutes that felt like a lifetime, Torch finally spoke. I'm sorry. You have nothing to be sorry for. Still, I am, he breathed. I know to keep my mouth shut down here. It's your place to say something, but you shouldn't have had to. It was my job to let 𝙂𝙁𝙁𝙁 say those things. Torch felt Cavern's gentle touch on his talons. The two froze in the hallway for a moment. You shouldn't be forced into silence, she said. And I'm tired of everybody acting as though treating you with decency is a chore. They spend more energy going out of their way to be a dust eater than to actually mind their business. Nobody ever does enough to make this place feel like home for you. You do, Torch added quietly. His grassy eyes finally met a familiar brown. You do a lot to make this place great for me. Cavern sighed, nudging him with affection. Well, I'm glad it helps. It goes both ways in that regard, honestly. I mean, I love it when people here aren't hateful, but these days, tension with whatever's going on up by the surface is really affecting everyone as a whole. We're sending out less patrols because the dragons by the mountains are killing more humans. They're burning down cities to greater degrees than they ever have. The stories are vicious. It seems targeted. I don't know what anyone did to them, or something going on between the dragons and they're taking it out on us. Whatever it is, it's bad. Less food means everyone is antsy. And even though I'm like you, and I believe not all dragons are monsters, nobody else will ever think the same unless we can do something about this unending fight. But I guess we can't, really. We're just stuck down here. Probably for good. Elder Flint is never going to listen to Dad's pitches for us to join search groups after everything that just happened. I'm the one who should be sorry. I turned this into a chaotic mess because tears began to well into her eyes, causing Cavern to blink heavily. Torch shook his head, leaning into his sister gently. It's going to be okay, he said. You did the right thing. It's something you shouldn't have had to say. But did Flint and the others really have a say if we stay or go? Cavern tilted her head to the side, furrowing her brow in confusion. What do you mean? Torch looked up at the sky hole in the empty halls. Dark colors painted the world above the pair. I mean, what if we don't let them choose our fates? It's not exactly like they're forcing us to stay down here with swords and shouts. I'm worried about people and dragons I've never even met. I feel like this has become more than just finding out who I am, but also what I can do. If their world needs saving, we could come back to Flint and everybody else with a better reality. Maybe even one where we don't have to hide from dragons anymore. There could be so much fruit on everyone's tables, and my kind could be our friends. We don't know their stories. I want to see the continent. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life down here without feeling the wind beneath my wings at least once. I've dreamed of a day where I could prove my worth and discover what kind of dragon I can be. It'll be a good one. Maybe this is the time. I want to learn about them, and about other people like us. Cavern, we could write our own futures. Breathless anticipation took over. Oh, I am totally down for that, Cavern said, her spirit shining through wide-open eyes. What's the plan? I mean, how are we even going to get the dragons to talk to us? We just fly up to them, I guess, Torch said. We can figure out the details on the way. Wait, you want to leave right now? Cavern, the world has been waiting for years. Things are only getting worse, both on the surface and down here. We have to do something. Anything. We'll talk to the dragons and find out what's going on. Maybe even meet some of the humans that are still alive. Well then, the teenager said as she led Torch to the exit hatch. I guess we have a world to restore. Torch gently placed his talons on the never-ending field of grass before him. Mountains decorated the valley, each one standing taller than the two could have imagined in any dream. The night sky was brimming with stars, each shining brighter than the last, and maybe even the moons themselves. I hope nobody walks past all this like it's a pouring cave wall, Torch whispered. He feared even a word would disrupt the serene balance of the nature. It's too beautiful. Cavern's eyes made shapes to the constellations, smiling widely at everything around her. So, she began at last, turning to face her brother, are you ready to truly fly? I think I was born for this. How exactly do I do this? The SkyWing asked nervously. Cavern thought for a moment, looking at the area in front of her brother. A running start, maybe? With that, she jumped onto his back, holding her small arms around his neck for support. Torch gave a deep breath, letting the outside air enter his lungs for the first time. And he ran. Running turned into leaping, and before either of them knew it, they were in the air, soaring up higher than the forest trees. The wind was knocked around wildly, every bush and shrub nearly losing its leaves with the force of takeoff. 3 moons, Torch said, voice gone in the wind. Cavern screamed with delight as the SkyWing darted past trees and into the night sky above. He rose as high as he could before hovering, near midnight air touching the scales with a sense of familiar warmth. "This is amazing," the scavenger said. Torch had never seen her happier than she was in that moment. Sliding down his back, Cavern caught sight of a peak that appeared identical to the one they stared at in awe in their scrolls. All it took was one look for Torch to understand where she wanted to go, especially when he spotted a dragon sitting on top. Torch flew faster, large wings grabbing the air around him and pulling himself forward. He soared beneath the stars, his wobbling lessening with every second. At last, the dragon they were approaching came clear into view. He was covered in orange scales, his body nearly a personified sunrise. The SkyWing turned to face the rapidly approaching dragon, brow furrowing and noticing a human on his back. "Oh my gosh, we're going to talk to a dragon," Cavern whispered. Torch felt his talons shake, but he gave a gentle inhale. "It's finally time. I'm going to learn everything about me and where I came from. It starts here." "You don't know me yet," Torch began, "but I'm here to end your war." And, of course, this random SkyWing is going to have no idea what Torch is saying, since they don't speak the same language. After all, he was taught to understand what scavengers say and use his own growling communication to talk to them and to break that barrier. But we'll end this off on a hopeful note, because I truly believe Torch could be the bridge between humans and dragons. And remember, he was supposed to be one of the Prophecy Dragonets. If you guys are interested in this story and would like a part 2, definitely share this around and let me know down below. If I were to make one, we'd see Torch finally meeting the other Dragonets of Destiny and change history. That's wrapped up for this video. I hope you guys really enjoyed this story. Again, thank you so much to 𝙒𝙤𝙁𝙊𝙍 for making the art here. And thank you for watching. What was your favorite part? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you all so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.